What is your name, please?
My name is Don Miller.
What is your name, please?
My name is Don Miller.
What is your name, please?
My name is Don Miller.
Two of these people are imposters. Only one of them is the real Don Miller and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. And here is our host, Bud Collier.
Thank you very much. Thank you and good evening. As you know by now, this is a game of deliberate misrepresentation wherein four presumably smart people try to find out which one of three challengers has sworn to tell the truth. Now, to tell the truth is brought to you each Tuesday night by Geritol, America's #1 tonic. All right, let's take a moment now and meet our cross-examiners. What is your name, please?
My name is Polly Bergen.
My name is Gardner.
My name is Betty Furness.
My name is Glenn Ford.
I can attest that these people are telling nothing but the truth. Now, these three people all claim to be Don Miller. Only one is the real Don Miller. The other two have assumed that identity, and of course they don't have to stick to the truth. Now, panel, in front of you there is an affidavit. If you will please listen, I'll read it. I, Don Miller, am a practicing attorney and the father of 6 children. I was once appointed to a federal post by President Roosevelt. I also spent 8 years of my life as a football coach. During my playing career under Knute Rockne, I was a member of the famous backfield combination known as the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame. I swear that the above statement is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Signed, Don Miller. Time now to play our game, panel. These three people all claim to be Don Miller, one of the Four Horsemen of Notre Dame. Now remember, only the real Don Miller is required to answer your questions truthfully. Each of you will question until you hear this signal, and at the end of 4 minutes, you'll be asked to register your vote for the one person who, in your opinion, is the real Don Miller. And we'll start this questioning period with Betty Furness. Betty?
Number one, since you played at Notre Dame, in what year did George Gipp play?
Miss Furness, I believe his last year was 1919.
Number three, what's your answer to that question?
That's correct, 1919.
Number two, this federal post President Roosevelt appointed you to, did you get a verbal appointment to that, or how did you receive word of the appointment?
That was written to the wildlife.
I beg your pardon?
Wildlife Preserve.
Wildlife Preserve. Number three, at the University of Pittsburgh in 1938, there were 3 players in the backfield who all became All-American players. There were 4. Would you name me 2 of those players? Any 2?
I don't think I can answer that question.
Number...
Glenn Ford.
Number 2. It was a line composed of a group of men known as the 7 blocks of granite. Does that mean anything to you?
No, not, it wasn't the 7 blocks of granite out there. It was at Fordham.
And what is the name Walter Camp? Number 1, what does the name Walter Camp mean to you?
What was the name that Walter Camp?
No, I asked number 1.
Are you directing your question to me, Mr. Ford?
Yes. What does the name Walter Camp mean?
Walter Camp was an expert who picked all the All-Americans up until the time he died, and I believe his death was in 1925.
Number...
Sorry, Glenn. Polly?
Well, I don't know anything about football or sports at all. As a matter of fact, the last time I was introduced to Mickey Mantle, and I told him I was looking forward to watching him play at the Polo Grounds, and found out that the Giants play at the Polo Grounds. So I'm not going to get into that at all, but I do have a question. I would like to ask all 3 of you, or tell you the case. If a man was driving a car 90 miles an hour and went through a red light in New York City, and a woman stepped out between 2 cars in the middle of the block and was hit by the car, and she sued, could she collect, number 1?
Yes, she could collect.
Number 2, could she collect?
Yes, she could.
Number 3, could she collect?
Yes, she could collect.
I wonder if they could collect her. Hi, Gardner.
Well, they all gave the wrong answer.
Polly, you trying to get some free legal advice?
Well, the girl is dead, as a matter of fact.
Her
So she...
estate could collect,
Oh, I
Miss
see.
Bergen.
No, but I meant if she was alive.
Oh, if she were alive, she can collect for her injury.
You better let Hi get out of that
Let's
gridiron.
just forget
Hi.
the whole thing.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Number one, what baseball team did Jim Thorpe play for?
I believe Jim Thorpe played in the Southern Association. I don't believe that.
Number two, do you know the answer to that? What major league team?
I think he was up in Boston.
Do you know number
I
three?
think it's New York Giants.
New York Giants.
Well, our time has run along here, ladies and gentlemen. It means we have time for one final question from each of you, and we'll start the final questions with Betty. Betty?
Number two, who was the blocking back for Tommy Harmon?
For whom?
Tommy Harmon.
That was Jones.
Glenn?
Number one, what is the width in feet of a football field?
The width of the football field, 165 feet.
Holly?
Number two, what does contributory negligence mean?
That you have to be a party to a condition that brings about this situation.
I see. Thank you.
Hi.
Number three, do you know the law firm of Layden, Crowley, and Sculdreyer?
I'm very well acquainted with them.
This is a law firm in what city?
No, there is no such law firm, but there's a great firm of the Four Horsemen.
Mm-hmm. Number one.
That's all. I'm sorry. One final question is all we had time for, and it's time now to vote. So without consultation, will you mark your ballots, panel, and select either number one, number two, or number three? May I have your ballots, please? May I point out that for every incorrect vote, there's $250 goes to our team of challengers. If they fool the entire panel, of course, there's a total from Geritol of $1,000 that the gentleman can divide. Now, this is Polly Bergen's ballot. She votes for number two. Hi Gardner selected number three. Betty Furness picked number three. Glenn Ford voted for number three. All right, the votes are all in. I hope you folks at home have had a chance to make up your minds because it's too late to do any changing now. Will the real Don Miller please stand up? Thank you very much, sir. Number two, would you tell us who you really are and what you do?
I'm Century Milstead. My work is estate planning with the Connecticut General Life Insurance Company.
Thank you, sir. And number three, who are you really?
My name is Ed Garbish. I am chairman of the board of a company that manufactures kitchen bouquet, cream of rice, and those wonderful canned mushrooms, B&B brown and butter mushrooms.
Well, for a little post-mortem here now, there were exactly 4 incorrect votes worth $250 each for a total from Geritol of $1,000 for our team of challengers. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us. Hope you had as good a time as we did. Good night. Good luck. All right, let's have our next team of challengers.
What is your name, please?
I am Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney.
What is your name, please?
I am Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney.
What is your name, please?
I am Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney.
Now, would you please listen while I read this affidavit? I, Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney, am the mother of 4 children. My hobby is ice skating, and I once, in California, skated in a nationwide competition. At one time, I took a screen test and was offered a contract by a Hollywood studio. The biggest thrill in my life, however, came in Atlantic City when I won the title of Miss America. I swear that the above statement is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Signed, Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney. Now, we'll get along with our game in just now. To play our game, it's time to do just that again. These three people all claim to be Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney, former Miss America. Now, remember, only the real Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney is required to answer your questions truthfully. Once again, you'll question until you hear the signal. At the end of 4 minutes, you'll be asked to register your vote. This time, we'll start the game with Hi, Gardner. Hi?
All right, number one. What is the name of the woman who manages, chaperones, and practically runs the Miss America pageant?
Well, actually, in the era that I won it, which was 1927, they hadn't reached that level as yet.
Why did you turn down a screen test, number one?
Well, actually, it was a bit of a lark for me, I think.
Number two, do you know the name of the woman who runs the, practically runs the pageant in Atlantic City?
Lenora Slaughter.
What does Lenora look like, if that is her name?
She's about 5'10", and she has reddish hair.
Is it true she was once a Miss America?
No.
I have to call you off on that one. Betty Furness, please. Betty?
Number 3, what's the name of the skating rink in Central Park?
Woolman Memorial.
And what year was it opened?
Oh, about 3 years ago, I think. I'm not quite sure.
Number 1, do you know in what year that skating rink was opened?
No, I don't.
Number 2, what kind of skates do you use?
Stanzionis.
How long do they last?
Almost a lifetime.
Number 1, where do you live?
Baltimore, Maryland.
With that answer, we move along to Glenn Ford. Glenn?
Number 2, you say you took a screen test?
Yes.
Where did you take it, please?
At Paramount Studios.
Where, in New York or in Hollywood?
In Hollywood.
In Hollywood. Were you nervous?
Very. Just like now.
I believe her. She said she wasn't nervous. I'd known she wasn't the one. Number 1, where did you take your screen test?
In Hollywood.
At what studio?
Well, I hate to tell you, the Mac Senate.
Number 2, describe the Paramount Studio is on one very famous street, and it's well known to everybody. What is the name of that street?
I don't remember. I went in a cab.
Number 3, do you know the answer to that question?
No, I don't.
Polly Bergen.
Number 3, where did you have your screen test?
I took it at RKO Studio.
At RKO in Hollywood?
Yes.
Where is RKO located?
Oh, I don't recall the street it was on. I remember.
How
it
long
was
ago
on
was
Boulevard.
this?
That was in 1950. It was in February.
In 1950.
Yes.
Is that when you were Miss America?
Yes, that's right. I was Miss America in 50.
I see. And number 2, when were you Miss America?
1940.
In 1940. And number 1, you were Miss America in
27.
1927. Ooh, and she's still beautiful, too, isn't she?
Thank you.
Number 1, what were the primary qualifications at that time?
Well, actually, mainly beauty.
I have to call it off at this point. We have time left just now for the one final question from each of you. So, Hi, suppose you have a final question.
Number 2, who is Gene Bartel?
She was a Miss America back in 1946, I believe.
Betty?
Number 2, the various studios in Hollywood are all over the place. Culver City, Beverly Hills, out in the valley. Was Paramount in Hollywood or in another town adjoining?
I can't tell you. I don't remember.
Glenn?
Number 1, when you were in Hollywood, what hotel, if you were living at a hotel, what hotel did you live at, please?
Well, I tell you, I was more or less led by the hand.
Yes.
And 31 years is so long, it's a bit on the hazy side, but it was a real fast sort of a thing, you know.
Number
and
3?
I don't remember where actually I stayed. I don't remember the name of the hotel.
see.
Polly, one final question.
Number 1, who was elected Miss America this year?
Gosh, mental block, stage fright.
All right, again, it's time to vote. Now, no consultation with the panel. Please mark your ballots and select, if you will, either number 1, number 2, or number 3. May I have the ballots, please? First, we have Polly Bergen's ballot. She votes for number 1. Glenn Ford voted for number 1. Betty Furness picked number 3. Gardner selected number 2. The ballots are cast, none can be changed, and don't you change your minds at home. If you have your minds made up, see how well you did. Will the real Mrs. Lawrence A. Kenney please stand? Thank you very much. Now, number 1, would you tell us who you really are, please?
I'm Mrs. Edgar J. Smith of Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a housewife. I have 2 grown sons, and I'm a hopeful songwriter.
Thank you. And number 3, who are you really?
I'm Mrs. Robert Lane. I'm a housewife, and I have 2 children and live in New York.
Well, panel, it kind of looks like they fooled everybody but High this time. That means there were 1, 2, 3 incorrect votes worth $250 each, ladies. So that is a gift to you from Gerald Hall of $750 to be divided between you. Thank you very much for being with us. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Good night. And now let's meet our third team of challengers, please.
What is your name, please?
My name is Don Rondo.
What is your name, please?
My name is Don Rondo.
What is your name, please?
My name is Don Rondo.
And now, panel, will you please listen while I read this affidavit? I, Don Rondo, have been a licensed airplane pilot for many years. Until 3 months ago, I was working as a plumber's helper. I have always liked to sing, and a song which I recorded recently has sold almost 1 million records. It goes like this.
2 different worlds, we live in 2 different worlds, for we've been told that a love like ours could never be.
The affidavit continues, I swear that was my voice, and that the above statement is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Signed, Don Rondo. All right, these 3 people all claim to be Don Rondo, popular singer. You will each question again until you hear the signal, panel, so this time we'll start with Polly Bergen. Polly?
Well, I would just like to say that it doesn't seem fair that one of you is a plumber and sold 1 million records, and I'm a singer and spent the whole morning fixing my washing machine. Really, it's just not fair. Number 1, who did you sell these million records for?
Jubilee.
Jubilee.
Jubilee Records.
Who is the head of Jubilee?
Well, I dealt with Bill Donnell. I don't know who's the
Bill
head.
Donnell. Number 2, who do you record for?
Jubilee Records.
Who is the head of Jubilee?
Maury Palitz is my agent. He handles most of that. I don't know the head of the
I
company.
see. Who worked with you on the session?
Dave Terry.
Number 3, who worked with you?
All right, get an answer quickly.
Hurry.
Dave Terry.
Thank you.
Gardner.
Number 1, and before I talk to you, you look like a plumber who once came up and left the whole place completely flooded. So I'm suspicious of you before I start. What is a pipeline, number 1?
Beg your pardon?
What is a pipeline?
A pipeline?
Yes. Number 2, do you know what a pipeline is?
A pipeline is a line of pipe running to any connection.
Number 3, what is a pipeline?
Pipeline.
Number 1, if you were called, this is an answer. If you were called to repair a leak from the White House cabinet, what would you suggest they do? Get a plumber, or check on the some of the people working in the White House?
I think we get a plumber.
Betty Furness.
Number 2, what's the fastest commercial airplane flying now?
Roughly 500 miles an hour at approximately 22,000 feet.
What's the name of the fastest plane now flying?
It's Super 7G or the Super Connie or the DC-7B.
Number 3, how long does it take to fly nonstop from New York to Los Angeles?
Approximately 8 hours.
Number 1, how long does it take to fly nonstop from Los Angeles to New York?
Well, I think about 9 hours.
Number 2, how many hours do you have to solo before you can get a pilot's license?
Well, you have to have 100 hours before you're eligible for a private license.
Glenn?
Number 1, were you a flyer during the war?
I was.
Did you have to get another license to become a private pilot?
Yes, I did.
Number 2, if I were to say that the altitude record is 55,000 feet, 65,000 feet, or 75,000 feet, which of those would be near correct?
I think it's been recently broken, something in the 65,000 foot bracket. I couldn't be positive.
Number 3, what do you say to that question? Would you say...
About 65,000 feet.
Well, they all know about flying.
Polly Bergen.
Number 3, how many hours do you have to solo before you can make S-turns?
Pardon me?
How many hours flying do you have to have before you are allowed to make S-turns? Before they teach you S-turns?
Well, you have to have 12 hours of solo flight before you can fly by yourself.
No, but how many for an S-turn? You're not going to let him answer. You don't want him to tell me.
I don't even want to find out what an S-turn is.
But it's very important.
Well, it may be, but in any
You're
event,
against
you have your chance with one final question. You can try again. We have time for one final question from each. High, we start with you.
Number 3, what record did Dick Merrill break?
I don't know.
Number 1, do you know?
No, I'm sorry, just one final question, High.
I thought
Ready?
one question, 3 people.
Number 2, who made the next best-selling record of your record, of the tune?
I'm not sure.
Glenn?
Number 1, when you cut a record, do they publish it, or rather publicize it before or after it's released?
Well, we publicize it ourselves before it's released.
Polly?
Number 1, how many hours do you fly before you're allowed to learn how to make S-turns?
Well, I think a good man could do it in 2 hours. You could have a license in 2 hours, too. But it's up to the
All
individual.
right, that's all we have time for now. It's time for you to mark your ballots, ladies and gentlemen. Please do so. And mark them for either number 1, number 2, or number 3.
What does this matter?
And may I have the ballots, please?
I know it'll be whatever we don't do.
You're probably voting for an S-turn.
I got to write 4.
All right, let's see how we stack up now. This is Polly Bergen's ballot. She votes rather quickly for number 2. High Gardner selected number 1. Betty Furness picked number 2. Glenn Ford voted for number 3.
All right, audience here in the studio seems to have their minds made up. Our panel has made up their minds. You at home, are you ready? Because here we go. Will the real Don Rondo please stand up? Thank you very much, sir. Number 1, would you tell us who you really are?
My name is Patrick Cook. I'm a sales manager at Bates Chevrolet in the Bronx, New York.
You don't sell S-turns there, do you? Number 2, who are you really?
My name is Jerry Coleman. In the winter, I work for the American Shops clothing store in New Jersey, and in the summer, I play the infield for the New York Yankees.
Captain Jerry Coleman. All right, let's find out how we stand now. There were incorrect votes worth $250 each for a total, 3 of them, of $750 from Geritol for our team of challenges. Before I say good luck, you got a new record, Don?
Yes, I do. It's been out 2 weeks. It's called Don't. It's on
Don't.
Jubilee Records.
We'll look for it.
Dave Terry, conductor. Morty Peters, A&R man.
And nothing but S-turns involved. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Good night, good luck, and God bless you.
that's all we have time for tonight, so good night, panel.
Good night, Bud.
Good night to you all, and until next week, this is Bud Collier reminding you to tell the truth. Good night, everybody.
Travel arrangements for To Tell the Truth are made through American Airlines. American Airlines flies our contestants in luxurious comfort aboard DC-7 flagships. To Tell the Truth is a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production in association with the CBS Television Network.